Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Jones. It's another Tuesday, and we're already almost halfway through the month of July. Time has just been flying by this summer. It's been a slow few weeks of news, and that all changed this past week. Lots of news related to Purdue sports and the wide world of college athletics. So let's just get right into it. As I'm sure all of you guys have heard, last week, the Big Ten announced a conference-only schedule for fall sports, canceling all non-conference action. Most notably, this affects football, as well as volleyball, soccer, cross-country. In a quote from the Big Ten's press release, it said, quote, "By limiting competition to other Big Ten institutions, the conference will have the greatest flexibility to adjust its own operations throughout the season and make quick decisions." That was per the Big Ten release on Thursday, when the news was broken by Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic that the Big Ten would be going to a conference-only season. What does this mean for Purdue? They lose out on home games with Memphis and Air Force, as well as an away matchup at Boston College. GoldenBlack.com's Brian Newbert reported on Twitter that Purdue was set to pay $800,000 to Air Force, $750,000 to Memphis, and they were also scheduled to receive $250,000 from Boston College, essentially receiving the money back that Purdue paid Boston College for their 2018 game in Ross-Ade Stadium, a game Purdue won 30-13. These contracts should be invalidated due to the pandemic. Think about every legal expert I have seen on different articles and on social media has seemed to think that, all of these game contracts will be null and void due to the pandemic. This affects everyone in the Big Ten, obviously. Some other big games over in the state of Iowa, the annual Cy-Hawk game between Iowa and Iowa State. Week 1 had scheduled Michigan at Washington, a really big game out in Seattle. Would have been a cool game. Week 2 would have seen Ohio State at Oregon. We'd also see Penn State at Virginia Tech, and the Wisconsin-Notre Dame game that was scheduled to be played at Lambeau Field. All of these are off now. It's going to be just Big Ten conference games. So, just breaking it down a little bit more. From what I've gathered, this is all about attempting to create a single standard of coronavirus testing and reporting the positive cases. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I get that. Now, there are plenty of logistical questions to this. Is it safer for Iowa to drive a couple hours across the state to play Iowa State in Ames? Or is it safer for, Iowa to fly all the way out to State College, Pennsylvania to play Penn State? I get the Big Ten's intent here. The testing is important. I think it is a very deep level of distrust the conferences had with each other to report the cases in a uniform manner and to do the right thing. I do think, this shines some light as to why college football could use a commissioner and have a national almost national college football office, because, when the NCAA leaves this to the conferences, we're in this spot we're in right now where, all these conferences are doing their own thing, doing their own testing, coming up with their own testing standards to go by. I don't know that I think that's necessarily, the right thing. I don't have a huge problem with it, but let's face it, since the implementation of the Bowl Coalition back in the mid-1990s, college football's been a national sport. We've seen realignment. We've seen conferences, expand, teams jump across. Look, these conferences are important, but at the end of the day, this is a national sport. Alabama and Clemson have become bigger rivals than Alabama and Missouri, despite being in the same conference. I mean, you see this all the time. This is a national sport, and for the season to come down to the conferences and their decision on it, I think it's time that college football gets real and makes this the industry that it is. It's a massive, massive industry, and the NCAA is all about it until it's time to make decisions and they punt it to the conferences. It's time to have a national college football office with a decision maker who can help, standardize this testing and standardize how you report, positive tests, because, I do think there is a path to play non-conference here if, all the conferences are on the same page. Obviously, that's not going to happen. From what was reported, this Big Ten announcement on Thursday kind of blindsided the leaders from other conferences. The Pac-12 has now followed suit. They will be playing conference-only games, and it sounds like the ACC is going to as well. That leaves the SEC and the Big 12 and the Power 5 as the two conferences who have not made a decision on whether to go conference-only or not. Obviously, a lot of the attention there will be on the SEC and Commissioner Greg Sankey. He has not made any decision yet. He brought up in a news conference yesterday that he thought that late July would be the right time to make an announcement there. But, one thing I heard regarding the move by the Big Ten to announce this first was from Brad Powers, a Vegas college football gambling expert on the Bill King show. He brought up, communication is so easy in these times we're in now, yet it's not even used. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's a little bit disheartening to see, the sport I love and have the leaders of it not even, working together. It's tough. I don't like seeing this, but obviously it's an unprecedented year. College football isn't going to look the same. There's been some discussion of going to spring football. The Ivy League has done that. I don't see that happening with the FBS Power 5 schools. I don't see that at all. There's too many logistical nightmares for moving the season to spring. Up in our land here in the Big Ten, are you going to be outside in Michigan Stadium in February? I don't think so. Are you going to be outside in Minneapolis, Minnesota in January getting ready for the season? No way. So I just don't know that I see that happening. I think it really is. It's the fall or it's nothing. And, now we're looking at a fall-only season with conference-only games. We'll see what that looks like. Going into a little bit more of the impact this has on Purdue, I've been very critical of the way Purdue schedules their non-conference. This year was a prime example of that by playing 3 games, which were all going to be difficult games for Purdue. I will always maintain there is no benefit to that. Not playing Memphis particularly, though, is a blessing in disguise. Memphis was going to come into Ross-Ade and put up a lot of points. Purdue was going to have to play really well on offense to outscore them. I don't know. It could have happened. I could also have seen Memphis coming in there and winning by 2 touchdowns. And, Purdue's not in a position right now where it can afford these losses. I was talking to a listener on Twitter who, brought up that, not playing these non-conference games was a good thing. And, my point is Purdue is coming off a 4-8 season where they lost some momentum. They had a lot of good momentum coming in after Brom's first 2 years with 2 bowl appearances, some big wins in there. They lose to Nevada. They get blown out by TCU, and they struggle in the Big Ten. This isn't good for the program's image. Yes, Memphis is a really good team, but if Purdue loses to a Group of 5 team, the message is not that Purdue lost to maybe the best team or, one of the top 3 teams in the Group of 5. The message is Purdue lost to a Group of 5 school. So not playing Memphis is great. I do, want to point out that I think it's really good that none of these opponents Purdue had scheduled rely heavily on buy game money for their athletic departments. With Memphis, great basketball program. Penny Hardaway has brought a lot of positive attention back to Tiger basketball and filling up FedEx Forum, especially last year with an unbelievable recruiting class in there. Air Force is in a league of its own, being a fully nationally funded university. That's a lot different than any of these other ones. And Boston College being another Power 5 school. All of this is good to see that these athletic departments Purdue is going to be playing aren't going to be in shambles because of this. I know one of the biggest effect of canceling the non-conference schedule, in my opinion, is all of these smaller athletic departments that rely on buy game money to keep their athletic department afloat. I know the number was, I believe for Bowling Green, they're out $2.2 million from their buy games being canceled. I really, really hope there is a way that some of that money can get to these smaller Group of 5 schools from the MAC or the Sun Belt or the Conference USA, whatever conference it may be, because this is part of what makes college football college football. College football, yes, the Saturday 3:30, 8 o'clock time slots, they drive college football, but college football isn't the same without Tuesday night action in November. College football isn't the same without a Wednesday night Sun Belt game in November. These buy games, they're not the same. They're not the same as conference games. There's a different energy to them, but it's still college football. And you're still allowing these players a chance to compete on the biggest stage in sports. I really hope that there's a way that these schools can be all right, because that's a lot of money. These schools don't, even if the MAC goes to a conference-only schedule, these schools don't make a tremendous amount of money off of, off of gate fees and tickets and concessions and merchandise. That's not where these schools make money the way that Power 5 programs make money. These schools rely on buy game money and TV money. And, losing that buy game money is just a tremendous loss. And that's going to have a huge ripple effect into other sports. I know, having grown up a baseball player, I see it now with all of these smaller Division I schools. No one makes money off baseball unless you are an elite school in the SEC or ACC. No one up north makes money off baseball. So how many kids who play baseball and would be having the opportunity to play at a small D1 school, aren't going to have the opportunity to play at that school anymore because of, the loss of buy game revenue from the football team or even the basketball team if we get there. So it's really unfortunate. I don't like seeing this. I am hopeful that there is a way these smaller athletic departments can survive. We will see. And another thing with Purdue is, this is still a young football team. Purdue is incredibly young on both sides of the ball. So, the more games this team would be able to play, the better. I don't think this year is necessarily the year Purdue would have its eyes on having a, real breakout 8-9 win season. But I think, the next year or two, 21, 22, one of those years, Purdue's going to have some more experience and might be more reasonable to push for that in terms of expectations. So, the more this team can play, the better. I think you want to get as many snaps for Jack Plummer, as many carries for King Doru and Tyreek Murphy, for a young defense, as many reps as you can get. So obviously you lose out some here with just losing out on games to help build for the future. In terms of the schedule, the Big Ten hasn't announced anything yet. I don't know really what it's going to look like. I do feel that division games probably should have to be the top priority. That would be 6 games right there for the Big Ten East and Big Ten West to play within each other. I don't know. I am hopeful that we get this entire season in terms of the 9 Big Ten games that are already scheduled. But, I have heard rumblings that the division games are going to be played first. That way, at least, you can get those 6 in, hopefully, and then have a Big Ten championship game for the 2 winners. You can do that in Indy. You can test all the players before. You can do it wherever. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that I think the college football playoff is unreasonable. I think you can probably look at how the NBA is doing things right now with a bubble, same with the NHL. Maybe you can do that for a college football playoff for the top 4 teams. I don't really know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but, and I really do hope that, we can go beyond division games. I don't want to see a year without the old Oak and Bucket game. That just wouldn't feel right. I don't want to see all these games not happen. I'd love to see Purdue go up to the Big House. I'd love to see Rutgers come into town because I think that's Purdue's probably easiest win of the season at this point. So I really, again, hope we get all these 9 games in, but I expect that when the Big Ten moves forward with a new schedule announcement, your first 6 games on the schedule are going to be those Big Ten West matchups. And then you would probably see the 3 crossover games with the Big Ten East wrapping up with Indiana last. So in terms of the postseason, I don't see smaller bowl games being played at all. I do think you could maybe see the New Year's 6 bowl games all be played. And I also think there's a chance that it would just be a playoff. I don't really know what to expect there. I think it's way too early to really speculate on that, but I don't expect seeing the Gasparilla Bowl or the new the Mayo Bowl down in Charlotte. I don't think those games are going to be played. So we're going to see. Obviously, there's still a lot to take place. We are over a month and a half away from when the start of the season would be. So we'll keep you updated every week here on the show. But, we'll get into some other Purdue news from the week. If you are on social media at all and follow Purdue Athletics on social media, you obviously saw the new video board in the south end zone of Ross-Ade Stadium is complete. Major credit to Athletic Director Mike Bobinski for getting this done. This has been a long time coming. I remember back in the early 2010s seeing all sorts of renderings of what the south end zone could look like, and then nothing really comes of it. In 2013, we saw the stands that were once in the south end zone get ripped out, get replaced with the outdoor beer garden area, and it just sat there for 6-7 years and just always felt a little bit awkward. Just felt like something should be there. Now we have the bigger video board that'll take up pretty much the entire south end zone. The beer garden will still be there beneath it, I believe. But at least that video board will make it feel a little bit more closed off down in the south end zone rather than having an immense view of Cary Quad. I think everyone would rather look at the video board. So, the improvement Bobinski has made with Ross-Ade since he took over in 2017 has been very, very impressive. We have lights now. Purdue never had lights up until then, which is just unbelievable in my opinion. Obviously, the new video board, as well as the north end zone ribbon board, the old little scoreboard they had in the north end zone with the Nike logo on it looked like it came out of the 1990s. Ross-Ade feels like a 21st century stadium now. It's nice to be able to say that. Hopefully, we're all able to see that from inside Ross-Ade Stadium this fall. In other news for football, a couple of football commitment dates have been announced for recruits. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., 2022 quarterback target Brady Allen of Gibson Southern High School in Southern Indiana will announce his commitment. He's a 3 or 4-star quarterback, depending on which service you use, ranked as a pro-style quarterback. The 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball is 100% on him committing to Purdue. If you're listening to this Wednesday afternoon or later, you will know the outcome to this, but recording this a day early, Steve Wiltfong, the 24/7 lead expert, has submitted Purdue as his prediction for the Crystal Ball. So we're going to more or less assume he's going to pick Purdue. I watched some of his film. I like this guy a lot. Really strong passer. He's got a 6'5" frame, throws the ball really well. Deep ball is impressive. He's got good accuracy on his deep ball. Doesn't try to overthrow it too much. He's surprisingly accurate when he rolls out of the pocket, and that's not something you see a ton with a quarterback during their sophomore season of high school. You don't see a lot of his highlights with him running the ball, but at the same time, he still has 2 years left of high school. I expect for him to, get faster, get more agile, quicker on his feet. For him to commit this early, you definitely see how much Purdue wants him. He's a high priority. Jeff Brom has made it pretty clear throughout his time at Purdue that he wants to take one quarterback every year. And we've seen it now. Plummer, Paferi, Olemo, Sam Jackson in the 2021 class, and now Brady Allen, assuming he commits tomorrow. I think Allen is the best one that Brom has received a commitment from so far, assuming that Allen commits tomorrow. Still has 2 years left of high school. There's a lot to be unfolded there, but again, a guy I really like and think would do really, really well in Jeff Brom's quarterback-friendly offense. And then staying in the state of Indiana and even within Tippecanoe County, 2021 linebacker Yanni Karlaftis will announce his decision on August 9th. The name should sound familiar. Younger brother of defensive end George Karlaftis. He is a 24/7 composite 4-star recruit from West Lafayette High School. Yanni Karlaftis is down to Purdue, Wisconsin, Cal, and Oregon for his commitment. It will likely come between Purdue and Wisconsin, the two schools he has taken official visits to. Obviously, this is a big priority for the 2021 class. You have an immense talent, really close to home, almost literally in your backyard. So, he's a guy who would probably be able to play right away in the 3-4 defense that Bob Diaco would like to run. Wisconsin's going to be tough to beat out. Wisconsin, for a defensive player, has built up plenty of reputation. For Purdue, they're definitely hoping that the connection between George and his younger brother will help them out here and secure a commitment. I don't really know what to expect. We're still about a month away, so we'll make sure to touch on this again in early August, the week before it happens. But, the biggest domino to fall in the 2021 class will be happening on August 9th. And then from around the nation, college football, yesterday, quarterback transfer JT Daniels, former quarterback at Southern Cal, now at the University of Georgia, announced that he was granted immediate eligibility. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility left. He was hurt in the season opener last year for USC when he tore his ACL. Look, I don't support the one-time transfer rule in college football. I did a podcast on that about a month ago, and I, have never been altogether a big fan of the one-time transfer idea. With that being said, JT Daniels getting immediate eligibility is exactly why the one-time transfer rule is popular. Daniels is from California. He is going all the way across the country to play at Georgia because Kedon Slovis is a better quarterback than he is. Or at least Kedon Slovis has proven to be better thus far. Kedon Slovis had a great freshman season last year. Daniels was not as strong when he was a freshman. Daniels is leaving because Clay Helton and Graham Harrell would rather have Slovis at quarterback than JT Daniels. So, immediate eligibility is being granted because he was going to get beaten out. This is where, the one-time transfer rule is probably going to be passed because there is no legitimate reason on the surface that Daniels would be leaving USC and should be able to play immediately at Georgia. He comes to Georgia because, can he beat out Jamie Newman? Maybe. But behind Jamie Newman, there's very little in that Georgia quarterback room that's going to put up a lot of challenge to JT Daniels. It's a mess. On the bright side for Purdue fans, if JT Daniels is getting immediate eligibility, this should all but secure the idea that Iowa defensive back transfer DJ Johnson will get immediate eligibility at Purdue. He transferred out of Iowa due to the, unfortunate circumstances with insensitivity coming from Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa coaching staff. DJ Johnson transferring closer to home to be at Purdue. You would think that is absolutely a case for immediate eligibility. If JT Daniels gets it, I think almost every other player in college football is going to end up getting it. Now, we'll end with a couple of basketball notes before diving into questions from the listeners. It was announced, I believe, last Thursday that the Cancun Challenge for men's basketball has been moved to Florida. The Boilermakers were a part of that field with Clemson, Mississippi State, and Illinois State. This doesn't really mean much. I don't think any of you will be too surprised to hear this. During a global pandemic, leaving the country is probably not the safest idea. I hope, at least for the Purdue fans who booked their trips already to watch the team in Cancun, that the Hard Rock Hotel and Resort will refund the Purdue fans at least. That'd be a bummer if they did not get their money back for the event that won't be taking place in Cancun. And in Purdue basketball recruiting news, 2021 five-star Max Christie has committed to Michigan State. Purdue was in the mix with Christie, I believe. Purdue had offered. Christie had been on unofficial visits, but Christie never was able to get an official visit into Purdue. The pandemic, obviously, a big part of that. Tom Izzo did offer Christie's younger brother as well, who is a 2023 prospect, I believe. And Christie also took an official visit to Michigan State on their senior night, where Cassius Winston and the Spartans clinched a share of the Big Ten championship. It's a tough loss for Purdue. I always thought it was probably a stretch to get Max Christie in West Lafayette, but, Purdue fans never like seeing Tom Izzo get highly rated recruits, and, it's happened quite a bit over the years. It just happens. So that's part of the recruiting game. Purdue has one scholarship remaining in the 2021 class. Your top priorities are going to be the same. They haven't changed at all. You're looking at 5-star wing from Texas, Harrison Ingram. You've got 2 in-state 4-stars in South Bend Riley guard Blake Wesley and Silver Creek forward Trey Kaufman. Those are going to be your priorities here. And, I don't know when any of these timetables are for commitments. I think there's a lot of downtime right now. These guys are just starting to play AAU ball again. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye out on all these, and we'll update you with any further developments in terms of basketball or football recruiting. A couple of questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap this show up. Brian chiming in on Twitter asking what my favorite barbecue establishment in the state of Indiana is, and he wants to know the best way to make a tailgate meal healthy. He says his family plans to make a tailgating tradition, but the wife refuses to let him consume burgers and Busch Light for 6 hours every weekend. Brian, to answer your first question, the best barbecue in the state that I've had would be Shig's in Pitt Barbecue and Brew on Maple Crest Road here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Really good barbecue, a lot of different options on the menu. A bar there with beer and wine full of local craft brews, brewed right here in the great state of Indiana, including some craft seltzers as well, because I know Brian is a seltzer guy as well. And to answer his question about tailgating, Brian, you're in the right here. Drinking Busch Light and eating burgers all day, that's what tailgating's all about. I don't know what to tell you, but if you expect me to tell you to make a salad for a tailgate or to bring a big fruit tray, you're talking to the wrong guy. That's not going to be for me. So keep doing you, Brian, and you've got support here on Boilers and Beyond. And then Sam chimes in on Twitter asking, who are your early picks for Big Ten Player of the Year? We'll talk about football for this one. Basketball is so dependent on the NBA, early entry to the draft decisions on who stays in and who pulls their name out. For football, on offense, for offensive player of the year, obviously Justin Fields is by far the favorite. He is, essentially the co-favorite to win the Heisman alongside Clemson's Trevor Lawrence. So, Fields is by far the runaway favorite with that. Some other names that I would say are worth keeping an eye on would be Minnesota quarterback Tanner Morgan, Purdue wide receiver Rondale Moore, and Penn State running back Journey Brown. I think all three of those guys are really strong players. I don't see any of them winning Big Ten Player of the Year over Fields. I think Fields is just going to put up too strong of numbers and do too much to be overtaken. And then on defense, I'm going to go with Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. Had over 100 tackles a year ago. The best returning Big Ten defensive player. Some other names to keep an eye on are staying on the Penn State defense with defensive end Shaka Toney, Purdue defensive end George Karlaftis, and Ohio State defensive back Sean Wade. Those three, again, all going to have really good years in my opinion, but, Micah Parsons is just too good to go against. Going to be a really high pick in the NFL draft. Really strong defense in Happy Valley this year. That's all I've got for this week's show. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Make sure to subscribe. Boilers and Beyond is available wherever you get your podcasts. Shows on Twitter. Give us a follow at Boilers Beyond. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. We'll be back next Tuesday for more of the biggest news and high-level analysis of Purdue athletics. Be sure to tune in. Until then, stay safe.